Okay, it's 5:30, so we will go ahead and get started. Mrs. Nepa, if you can let the record show that Board Member Smart is appearing via Zoom and President Bruner is not with us this evening. And I'll turn it over to Chief Communications Officer Stephen Hall.
Good evening, board members. Tonight, it is a pleasure to introduce students from the Business Associated Student Education Program, also known as BASE, to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Students, as I call your name, please come forward. We have Jose Aguilar, June Branch, Wesley Appleby, Peyton Merrill, and Charlie Alba. Perfect, right here. Welcome, students. Jose, June, Wesley, and Peyton are current students in the BASE program, which is located at the Fairbanks, and they work in the coffee shop there, which is called Bikes and Brew. Charlie is a 2025 BASE graduate. These students are accompanied by their teacher, Mrs. Jan Foyewa. The BASE program offers high school students who are 16 years or older the opportunity to develop work and life skills that will help them successfully navigate life after graduation. At the Fairbanks, these students are gaining hands-on experience in helping operate a coffee shop while earning high school credits toward graduation. Before this meeting started, you all had the opportunity to sample some of the drinks they serve at the coffee shop. We will learn a little bit more about them and their experience following the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. If you're a family member of one of these students or part of the BASE team, please raise your hand or stand so that we may honor you as well. And now, students, we invite you to lead our Pledge of Allegiance, and audience members, if you would please stand and join us as the students lead the pledge. Students, whenever you're ready. Excellent job, students. Thank you. And we'll ask... And now we'll ask Mrs. Foyewa and her students to remain with us as we recognize our Board of Education this evening. You all can come forward. So board members, as you know, March is School Board Recognition Month, and we want to honor each of you tonight for your dedication and for your commitment to the 24,000 students and the 4,000 employees who make up Springfield Public Schools. We have enlisted the assistance of our BASE students and Mrs. Foyewa to make a special presentation to you this evening. Mrs. Foyewa, would you please share with our school board a little bit more information about the work that your students are doing at the Fairbanks, as well as the special gifts that you all have prepared for our school board members tonight? We'll have her come forward in just a moment.
They also work in a bike shop where they learn to repair bikes and how to maintain a bike. And they work as part of our custodial crew where they clean the building and they set it for events, any event that is at the Fairbanks. And I'm not going to talk long because they all have something to say. They're going to tell you their favorite part. Come on. All right, just your favorite job. You want to come back?
Bike shop.
Perfect.
My favorite job is cleaning crew.
My favorite, the coffee shop.
I learned a lot by brewing coffee and becoming a barista.
All right, and he's going to tell you what life's like after graduating from base.
So, when I first started base, from the last 2 years, Miss Jan was a blessing to me. I just say that she taught me a lot of good, helpful tips in life, like learning how to clean and such. I am very blessed that she's my teacher. My life wouldn't be the same without Miss Jan, but what I learned was job shadowing at the bike shop, at the SBC Community Bike Shop at the Fairbanks. And then I also job shadow at my local McAllister's off of Kansas and Kearney. And my boss loved how I work, so I got a full job working there, and I am a full-time employee at McAllister's off of Kansas and Kearney.
Stephen, do you mind us saying that we had lavender iced coffee, which was delicious. I did not expect to like it.
Awesome. So glad to hear that. And board members, also, our base students welcomed a large group of SPS ambassadors. As you know, we engage with community members as well as staff members, and our base students welcomed those community members to the Fairbanks and showed them around the bike shop as well as their coffee shop, and welcomed them and made our community feel very special. And it was one of the favorite stops of the program so far. So thank you, students, for being great representatives of our district and for our community. Thank you. So board members, I do just want to say, as the students were delivering their token, we do want to acknowledge your service, your advocacy on behalf of our students and our staff. Our community is so fortunate to have dedicated volunteers like each of you. And I think most people have no idea the amount of time that you dedicate to your role as a leadership volunteer with our districts. The talents that you support our students and staff and community with are very much appreciated. And so, audience, if you would please join us in thanking our Board of Education. Just a note, if you look inside your coffee mug, there's a special gift that you can redeem at the coffee shop at the Fairbanks. Thanks again, students, for making that special. Next up, we will continue honoring excellence tonight by recognizing our SPS Athletics grounds and crew. SPS was recently awarded Grass Soccer Field of the Year by the Missouri Soccer High School Coaches Association for the Jose Domingo Flores Field at Kickapoo High School. This recognition is based on excellence in field maintenance, safety, and overall turf quality. Proper field maintenance is critical to ensuring that all of our student athletes have safe, high-quality surfaces on which they can practice and compete. So tonight, we would like to recognize members of our grounds crew who make this work a priority. I know there were several that were unable to make it this evening, but I'm going to read the entire team's name. Those who are here, please join us up front. We have Jonathan Colley, Sheila Johns, Derek Smith, Robbie Todd, Doug Vobble, and Jeremy Wagner. We would also like to invite their supervisors, Brittany Taylor, Doug Dedman, and Andrew Hay, to come forward. As a group, these individuals are responsible for installing and taking down large track equipment on the fields, prepping each of our fields prior to the start of the season, as well as prepping facilities for large events to make sure that facilities look the best they can for those who attend the event. Thank you all very much. Please join us in thanking these outstanding employees for keeping our athletic facilities in top condition for our student athletes and our community who use these facilities. Thank you all. Thank you, team. Great work. Thank you. And finally, it's a privilege to recognize our Employee of the Month for March. The recipient of our March Employee of the Month recognition is the administrative assistant at Watkins Elementary School. She is often the first person that our parents and visitors interact with, and she greets them with a warm and caring attitude. During her time in this position, she has fostered a sense of trust, developing positive connections with our students and their families. Let's take a moment and watch this video to learn more about how Rebecca Lee is impacting the culture at Watkins.
My name's Rebecca Lee. I've been the administrative assistant at Watkins Elementary since the beginning of this school year. After a 20-plus year career, I knew I wanted a change in life, so I started substitute teaching, and I just knew I wanted to keep working here. I loved it.
And she had not worked many days before we basically said, tell us all the days that you're available because we want you to be here at Watkins.
I was very excited that when this job opened up.
Rebecca was a breath of fresh air. As a principal, you rely on your administrative assistant for so many things. She just slipped into that role so easily and seamlessly, and that makes my job easier.
I do attendance every morning. That's kind of what I start with. And from then, whatever happens for the day is what happens. And we roll with it. Different things happen every day, and that's part of the fun. It's part of the excitement. It's part of why I love working here.
In the office, there are a number of people that come across her desk. She's the first person that they see or hear from. So being calm, being composed, being kind, that is the first step in going above and beyond.
I feel like it's a true privilege to work here and get to work with the children. As someone who does not have a background with children or any kind of real training, it's a privilege and an honor, and I love it. Working at Watkins really allows me to love on a lot of people, and I love it. I get to love on the kids, I get to love on the other teachers, I get to love on the parents. It fills me up. I get the love back that I put out, and it keeps me filled up every day. It just makes me want to keep coming back.
Mrs. Lee, congratulations. Would you please come forward? Mrs. Lee, would you like to say something? Yeah, okay. Thank you. And that concludes Honoring Excellence for this evening. Thank you.
All right. right, thank you, Stephen. That brings us to the approval of the agenda. Our recommended action is that the board approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion? Motion from Board Member Thomas Tate. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Board Member Huff. And I think we're doing roll call, right? Yes, we're just going to do a roll call vote. I'll start with you. Gail? Okay, motion passes 6-0. There are no public comments this evening, so we'll move on to items, the consent agenda items. These are the minutes, the KCOP reports, personnel, and treasurer reports. Our recommended action is that the board approve consent agenda items 4.01 through 4.04. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Board Member Huff. Do I have a second? Second from Board Member Mohammed Khani. And we will do another roll call vote. And Gail?
Aye.
Motion carries 5 in favor, no against, and 1 abstention. That moves us over to new business, item 6.01, and Dr. Shaw will join us. Oh, did I miss? Oh, okay, Ms. Stacy will join us. I'm a little rusty here today. Sorry, guys. 5.1. Hello, Ms. Stacy.
Hello. So tonight kind of kicks off our formal,
I do have a question. I don't know if it matters or if I'm supposed to, but I can't see y'all
Oh, because the video's not on.
for some reason.
Just, Jim, hit the start video right there.
I got it. Hold on.
Hey, Gail.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, it's a little, it's great to listen, but it's better to see. So.
all right, board members. So tonight kicks off kind of our formal presentation cycle for the budget development process for next year. I did want to note that between the time this was posted on Friday and this evening, I made a couple of tweaks to the presentation. It was minor, some dates here and there, and then just a little language, but nothing major was changed. So again, I think most of you have been through this, but tonight's presentation is just a high-level budget development introduction, and then we do a review of the district's funds. So budget development is a year-round process. So we are currently operating under the FY26 budget that was adopted last June, and we are already moving into development for FY27. Key milestones in our budget development calendar include information sharing with the board, discussions with collective bargaining teams around economics, and then we have our eye on the legislative session at the state, which ends usually in mid-May. There are a variety of things that the legislative in the legislative realm, they're impacting not only state aid, but some potential impacts on local funding as well. So we're watching that. The final budget recommendation will be presented June 23rd, 2026, to align with the statutory requirement that the board must adopt a budget by July 1st for the upcoming year. So our budget isn't just for us. It's not just a local roadmap for this board. It's actually a legal requirement. And those legal requirements come from Missouri statute and Board Policy DB on the annual budget. Board Policy DB outlines 5 components that must be included in the budget. Those include a budget message outlining changes from the current year into the next year, a 3-year comparison of revenues and expenditures, our debt schedules, and a general budget summary. So budget development is driven by our strategic plan. For FY27, our primary goals are centered on 2 governing priorities. First, success-ready students, ensuring the continuous academic growth and the implementation of curriculum that aligns to Missouri learning standards. And second, quality learning environments, which focuses on maintaining safe and quality spaces for all staff and students. So to understand our budget, we must first look at how the funds are segmented out. Our operating fund basically covers everything from the people to the paper and the services. So salary and benefits, purchase services, and supplies. So the general and teacher fund combined are our operating fund. That's where most of the day-to-day expenditures happen and where most of the budget development work takes place. We have the debt service fund, which is responsible for the retirement and payback of the taxpayer-approved debt. We have the capital projects fund, which includes bond, so that is all construction projects and large equipment purchases. And then we have our self-funded fiduciary fund, which is our health benefit trust fund, or HBT. So this slide provides a snapshot from the annual Secretary of the Board report, or the ASBR. The ASBR is due to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education every August 15th, and it's essentially a district's look back at the prior fiscal year. The ASBR is comprised of revenues and expenditure data, and it provides that unrestricted ending fund balance. And as of June 30th last year, our unrestricted ending fund balance was 28.58. So the funds listed on the ASBR are considered governmental funds. The one fund that you'll notice missing on the ASBR is that HBT fund, because it is a fiduciary self-funded insurance fund. And while it's not listed on this report that goes up to DESE, it is audited annually as a part of our financial statement audit. So moving on to the current year, the ending fund balance percentage is projected to be 25.32 at the time of this report in March. So that will continue to ebb and flow and change as we land the year in June. This report likely looks familiar as it is a snapshot of the general budget summary from your treasurer's report, and that general budget summary is presented monthly. This slide provides a snapshot of our revenue budget and our expenditure budget broken down by fund. So we go through a thorough review of where we stand today, looking at not only the budget by fund and then our estimated actuals by fund, and then that provides a baseline for the projections that we're going to make heading into the FY27 budget. So looking specifically at the operating fund by source for our revenue, you can see very clearly where most of our support comes from. So our local and state revenue combined make up almost 90% of all of the funds that we receive to operate as a district. So that is why it is so important that we have consistent and stable local property taxes and consistent state funding as well. As you can see, that 60% of that budget is locally funded, and the majority of that local funding is received in January. So that is why having a stable and steady fund balance is so important, because we receive all of those funds in January and have to use those funds to get us all the way through the calendar year to the next December before we receive another large local tax payment. Districts that don't have high fund balances or that savings account, that cushion, typically have to borrow money to meet payroll in those later months, and so that's something that we want to avoid by having that fund balance. Next, we look at kind of how we spend our money. So this is an expenditure budget breakdown by object. You can see that 80% of our spending is dedicated to salary and benefits. This kind of underscores our commitment to investing in those staff and educators who support our student success. Purchase services represents about 8.27% of the operating budget and pays for things like substitute services, nutrition services management, our insurance, travel, repairs and maintenance, and legal services. And these object codes you see listed here are assigned by the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Next, we have our supply budget, which represents 11.53% of the operating budget, and this pays for things such as fuel for our buses and food for our students, utilities to keep our buildings running. My least favorite slide of the night. So we face several hurdles when it comes to revenue projections for next year. I recently attended a MASA budget workshop, and one of the comments that was made was that the next 2 years of budgeting for school districts are going to be some of the hardest that we've seen in recent history, which didn't make me smile at that moment. But We'll go through a few of these things, and again, a lot will probably change between tonight and the budget that we land on in June, and we'll keep the board informed of that at these meetings and those small group meetings. So local revenue, next year is a non-reassessment year, so the only increases that the district will see is from new construction or changes in personal property. So that means your real estate property from last year, your assessed valuation, will just roll forward as your assessed valuation in 2026. At the state level, there is concern that that state adequacy target will remain at 6,900 for the remainder of this year and then potentially fall below 6,900 going into next year. So achieving that full 7145 that we've discussed seems highly unlikely at this time. Proposition C revenue, although sales tax is strong, the governor's budget did not include any type of increase in the appropriation for that, so DESI can only pay out what's appropriated. If it's not appropriated, they can't pay out anything higher. So at this time, we are not expecting any more revenue from Prop C. Transportation state aid, the governor's budget proposed a reduction back to the FY25 appropriation. And that also includes a reduction of $15.2 million that was included in FY26 budget. So he's taking that back out and reverting us back to the FY25 amounts. They've also, so they basically told us to kind of budget for about a 90% reimbursement rate instead of that 100%. So it'll be reduced back. And then our interest income. So the rates continue to decline, and so I provided here a little historical trend for you so you can see where we were in February of 24 and where we were in January of 26. So rates continue to decline, so we'll have a little bit less investment income next year as well. And the final slide of the evening is just our presentation schedule. So we have a variety of small group meetings coming up and board presentations. We will reconvene back here in April to review debt, bond, capital, and HBT. And then we'll take a deep dive into general and teacher fund in May, all culminating to that final recommendation in June.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate your time and your team's time spending the small group meetings with us. I know it is very helpful to hear it multiple times. So
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Stasel? Okay. Oh, no.
I don't have a million questions because you do such a great job.
Thank you.
So the transportation state aid, the 15.2 million, is that just for our district?
No, that's the overall appropriation.
So it's really a small amount
Yeah.
of
So
effect on us.
Basically, what we're doing is we're taking what we got reimbursed in FY25 and
Okay.
taking about 5% off of that.
Okay.
So
Okay, so we got, and whenever we talk about, well, 90% or 100%, but it's not 100% of what we do. It's 100% of.
100% of 75%
Okay.
of the eligible things
Eligible,
that we can
okay.
claim. Yeah.
So we've never gotten 100%, right? So I just want to make sure, so it's 100%.
100% of the 75%.
And now we're about to get
90% of the 75%.
Of the 75. Okay,
Which
thank
is still
you.
better than the 30% that we used to get, but,
Which
you
is
know.
when we first came on the
Yes,
board.
yeah.
So, okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Oh,
We hear so much on the news about the state funding and the future of schools, and you were talking about the next 2 years maybe being the hardest in history, if I quote you correctly. At those meetings, did they project maybe a picture of what could happen in the next 2 years? I mean, I have heard, and please correct me, but a lot of the smaller school districts, the K-8 school districts, without much funding, but reducing that funding. Help me with what could go next. When the K-8s have to, combine with the larger school district?
Typically, consolidation is what you'll see. I mean, that's what some have predicted. I don't remember how many school districts we have in our state, over 500. So a lot of school districts, a lot of rural, a lot that rely heavily on state funding, and when state funding doesn't move, but the state also tells you that you have to raise your teacher's base, which is a requirement, that becomes very hard for a small school district, right? So we're above that threshold. We have been. We're very lucky to have been above that, but I know a lot of the people who work in this are very nervous about the future. And not only that, then you have Senate Bill 3, which we're not impacted by, but you've probably seen some of that on the news as well. So that affects their property taxes and the ability for them to continue to raise revenues on property taxes. So we're not in the worst case scenario. SPS is not in the worst case. We have a plan. We need to work the plan. And my heart does go out to those smaller school districts that are faced with some really, really tough decisions. So.
May I ask another question? So there's still legislation going on. Vote hasn't finished up. They haven't closed for the year. At your budget meeting, when they kind of gave you some hard information, did they give you the scenario, if this passes?
It was more if this passes, watch for this. So just things to be watchful of. So one of the things we've talked about in our small group is that weighted average daily attendance and that weighted membership, how it's shifting from 100% ADA to then it's going to go to 50-50 eventually. Well, what that can do to the overall wham, if you will, for the whole state, it'll raise it. So if you have an appropriation that stays the same, your numerator, but your denominator is growing, everybody else is going to get a little less, right? And so those are things that we talked about to be watchful for. Prop C is one of those. So while the governor's budget didn't include any kind of appropriation increase, it's flat, the denominator for that, the dividing, mark is going to get larger as we go to 80-20 and 70-30, and so we will receive less Prop C money because that denominator will grow. So it's talking through things like that and really the math around it, and the person who puts it on, I won't name drop him here, but he's a very, very smart man that I look up to as a mentor, and so just having conversations with him. And then area districts, we're not in this alone. We all do the same work. So trying to kind of information share and say, hey, what are you doing? How are you looking at this? That's just kind of the best information that we have right now, and I'm not willing to predict the future at the podium on a recorded meeting. But, we'll see how it goes.
Gotcha. Kara, I remember the first time I met you, and I jokingly asked you with the size of the budget that the Springfield Public Schools have, and I said, do you know where the last 17 cents was? Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And you paused and you looked at me and you go, yes. I do know where the last 17 cents is.
Yeah.
So you do an outstanding job. Can't thank you enough. We trust you. We know that you're going to lead us in the best direction that we can ever ask for. So thank you and your department. Appreciate it.
I know that you have talked about before the fund balance. It's currently at 28%. We've kind of been adding to it in understanding that we're going to, how does it drop over the next several years? At what level are we going to, how fast and yeah?
Depends on the plan we work. The plan right now is to look at one-time dollars, so that one-time spending that we've been talking about, where we can level out the revenue being higher than our expenditures, and then take those one-time dollars and infuse them either into capital projects or something like that. So right now, and we'll see a little bit more of that in some small group stuff, it's looking like 2 to 3% a year until we get down, maybe 4 or 5 years and out from now where it kind of levels out.
What's the minimum that the state requires? 18%? 17?
Our board policy calls for 15. Strategic plan is 17. I think if you get around 3, you're like in terrible. I don't want to get to 3 ever. I don't want to ever get to under 15. So we're a long ways away from that.
Re-educate me on this. So you said on the Prop C, the denominator grows. Mm-hmm. Then you said 90-10, 80-20, and the goal is 50-50. I thought that was good for us because we're getting away from the dependence on attendance, and it's more about enrollment. Now, talk to me about how that affects Prop C. I didn't quite get that.
It is good so long as that appropriation keeps growing along with the denominator, right? But if the budget that
by denominator, you mean the water. You're talking about, okay.
Yeah, so that's going to keep growing, which is great.
Because we're less dependent on attendance and more enrollment, so that number's going to get better.
Yes, so our numbers should get better, But if sales tax keeps growing, which is good, but the state doesn't appropriate any more to give out, for school finance to give out, for DESI to give out to us, then we will get less. If that,
Students, but we're still
Correct.
going to get
we'll still get some more, but if that dollar amount that we get per WADA goes
Is it
too
per
far
WADA?
down and
Okay.
doesn't continue to stay flat, which right now it's projecting to dip. So we're getting paid $14.65 per WADA right now.
okay.
Next year, DESI has said it's going to go to $14.52. Other people in the work say it's going to go down to $14.10.
So what you're saying is if everybody's water increases,
Correct. The pie doesn't get bigger.
but the pie doesn't
Our
get
piece
bigger,
gets smaller.
so our piece gets smaller.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we will move to item 6 and have Dr. Shaw join us at the podium.
Well, good evening, Board. District property, automobile, liability, and miscellaneous insurance coverage expires on April 1st, 2026. In an effort to streamline insurance renewal dates with the July 1st fiscal year of the district, extensive negotiations were conducted by the district's broker, Allis, Aker and Arney, with the current insurance companies that we have. So the proposed total premium of $2,048,468 is for 15-month insurance premiums for commercial property, commercial inland marine, cyber liability and crime, fiduciary liability, and foreign liability between April 1st of 26 and June 30th of 2027. An additional $157,128 for 3-month extension for the education liability program and auto physical damage premiums between April 1st of 2026 and June 30th of 2026 will be billed to the district. The remaining premiums for the education liability program and auto physical damage from July 1st of 2026 through June 30th of 2027 will be presented at the May board meeting. So let me kind of give an overall summary of the coverages that we have. So first, with property coverage, that premium is an increase of about 5.3%. That is all attributed to increased property values. There was no increase to property rates, which is attributed to favorable claims as well as great work from our loss prevention team in the district. I will say that notable coverage changes is because of an increase of $1.5 billion in property values to $1.58 billion, and so that's where that increase came in. So the recommendation for our property coverage is to stay with Chubb for that 15-month term. Then we have all lines aggregate, which is our liability insurance, also known as the ALA. United Educators, the district's current liability insurer, has agreed to extend the current policy for 3 months through June 30th of 26 with no changes in the policy structure or the rates. So the recommendation is to extend with United Educators for the ALA policy for the next 3 months, and then we will bring back a recommendation for a 12-month policy in May for July 1 of 26 through June 30th of 27. We then have the auto physical damage coverage. This is with Hanover Insurance. They have also agreed to extend the current policy 3 months through the end of June of 26 with no changes in policy structure or rates. So we have that recommendation to stay with Hanover for the next 3 months, and then again, a 12-month policy will be recommended in May that would cover July 1 of 26 through June 30 of 27. And then finally, we have miscellaneous coverages, which include all crime and cyber, foreign and fiduciary liability insurance. They have agreed to write a 15-month policy to ultimately move the next renewals to July 1st of 27 as well without any significant rating coverage or deductible changes. So one of the things that's different, obviously, around this renewal is we generally come to you with a 12-month renewal. It's April 1st. We want to get this to a July 1st renewal. It makes more sense from a budgeting standpoint. The best way that it was explained to me is why couldn't we do this with all of our plans and go to a 15-month policy? And the way I was explained it, and if Jeff Eiserman with Allis, Aker and Arney is here and corrects me if I'm wrong, but it was because simply of the way that those particular companies were filed through the state, and the state, how they're filed, will not allow larger than a 12-month premium policy. So they have to do a 3-month extension, and then we would get it back to 12, and then when it comes time to the following year for FY28, we would then do 12-month rolling, and it would come to you later in the year for the July 1 approval. So I would be happy to try to answer any questions for you. Like I said, Jeff is here with Hollis, Akers, and Arnie. If there are specific questions about our coverage, you do have a summary document that's included with the narrative that kind of gives you an idea and the specific amounts of each one. But we feel like this is the best approach moving forward, and will make our renewals much more streamlined and simple with our budget.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from board members?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Okay.
After all the years and all the questions, I finally get it. The premium summary page is really nice because, at least for me, I always like to see where was I, where am I today? I do that, in my personal life when I'm paying bills and this. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And that's credit to our broker. They do great work for us and always look out for the best interest of the district.
Other questions or comments from board members? Okay. Do I have a motion that the board approve the property, automobile, and liability insurance renewal as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion from board member Huff, second from board member Thomas Tate. This time, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries 6-0. That brings us to our facility master plan services.
So the request for proposal for facility master planning, FMP services, was let on January 5th, 2026, with a due date of February 6th of 2026. We did receive 2 responses. A committee of district employees interviewed both of these firms, and the committee ultimately recommends Capital AE, Asset Engineering, for the FMP services. The proposed fee is for $657,240. This does include, as part of their work, doing a new demographic and boundary study. So since this is an item that is once every 10 years, I want to talk a little bit about the requirements so that you have a better understanding of where we got to this point. So they all had submittal requirements. They had to submit about their firm, specifically about the project team that was going to be working with the district, the experience doing this type of work, their planning approach, and their project management plan, as well as sample deliverables, and then they also presented a fee. The RFP did specify that we had 10 different objectives that we needed to accomplish through the facility master planning work. I'm not going to go through those in detail. Those are actually part of the information that the board has received previously. But there were 5 phases of the scope of work, from community involvement, which we feel is a very crucial part of this work, the facility assessment, the master plan, and the requirements that were in place for the work they were going to do, the long-range facility planning, not only just what happens next bond issue, but 5, 10, and 15 years down, and then also ultimately a recommendation and potentially adoption by the board at that particular time. And so the selection criteria, there were 5 main things that we looked at. One was the firm experience of doing this work and their staff. The planning approach was a big piece of this, and how they were going to manage the next 9 months to get us to where we needed to be. The deliverables that they provided, cost was a big part of this as well, on what this would entail. It's a large number, as you've seen, and then also the presentation that they gave to us. And so ultimately, with recommending Capital AE, we felt that this was a group that really stood out to us. The other group that we interviewed was very good as well. I think what we really liked about this was Josh Chisholm, who's the founder of Capital AE, at one time was a facilities director of Colorado Springs Public School, and he has that firsthand knowledge. And so about 7 years ago, he broke out and began this work, and initially started working with David Sturtz with Sturtz and Company, who was the lead consultant with the facility master planning process when he was at that particular district. One of the things that through a variety of ways of their connection, Capital AE had connected with Paragon Architecture. Paragon, as we know, has been a great partner for the district for the last 10, 12 years. They are truly vested in our community. And as I mentioned before, the community and stakeholder involvement process of this is so critical, and understanding what our district and community needs and how they will think around the difficult decisions that ultimately will come when you start dealing with demographic and boundary studies, when you start looking at what are we doing with our 50 schools. We really valued the fact that Brad Irwin and his team were going to be a consultant with this, and then also partnering up with the Institute for Transportation Research Education and their school and community alignment master plan, which they call School Camp. They specify in all of the work that's needed with boundary and demographic study, and really things have changed drastically in the last 3 years since the last one we had. And so their team was extremely impressive. We got to spend about an hour in person with them, and they really hit to the things that we felt were really needed. Their approach around the community and stakeholder piece was really something that they focused on. And so ultimately, after the group scored, we unanimously selected Capital AE to bring this work forward. As you know, 10 years ago, this same work was about $350,000. And we live in a different world with inflation, and so you can see that it's quite a bit more than that. I think what we need to look at is this is really a 10-year investment. And when we think about spending $650,000 over the next 10 years, that will provide the district with crucial, valuable information on what does the future of our facilities look like, and what does our next bond issue specifically look like, to then be able to guide our community task force on facilities, as we've done in the last 2 successful bond issues. So very excited about being able to work with this team and get this work moving forward. So with that, I will pause and answer questions that you may have.
Travis, you answered part of my question that I had in relationship to the master plan that we did. Was it, how many years ago was it?
2016.
Okay, and you said it was about $350,000, which is, again, half of what we're proposing now. In that study, was the demographic study included, or was that a separate company who did that, and how much was that?
That was part of the $350,000. It was a separate line item, much like we did initially here. We did get initial pricing from both companies. After interviewing, we went back and said, we need your best and final number. Both companies brought that number down. But in comparison, the the demographic and boundary study from 10 years ago was about $15,000.
On top of the $350,000?
No, that was part of it.
Okay.
But it was, so the facility master planning was about $335.
Okay.
The demographic was about 15. In these, the combined is about 357 or 657. About 50,000 of that was a demographic study. So you can see how that has more than tripled from what it was from the pricing that we had on that particular item 10 years ago.
And so the current demographic study is how much?
So in this particular proposal, it was about 50,000 of the 657. Now, if you remember when we did it 3 years ago, and that's all we did, it was around $80,000. It was $80,000 separate. So we're getting a discount, if you will, by combining it with facility master planning.
How often are we doing those demographic studies?
Well, ideally, it would be about every 5 years, but it makes sense to do it now along with the facility planning. One, because they're going to be out doing the work, but two, we have seen a distinct change in what that facility or the demographic study was showing us 3 years ago, because our enrollment shifts have been significantly different. So we need updated new information. And so we were provided that 3 years ago, but it actually went off of 4-year-old data. And so by the time they get this work, and we're going to be looking at almost 5 years.
So their data was before the pandemic, essentially, right? If it was 3 years?
It was actually
3
right
years
after the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see this demographic study compared to the one we did 3 years ago for those of us. Do you remember all the questions we had? There were a lot. I heard you earlier say, look forward to the work that they're going to do in the next 9 months. So am I to infer that we'll have this facility master plan presented to the board in roughly 10 months?
We're thinking
That the
November,
goal?
December time.
November, December. Okay, thank you.
Other board member questions, comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion that the board approves capital AE for facility master planning services. Motion from Board Member Mohammed Khani. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Board Member Huff. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. All right, and Mr. Bruce Douglas will join us at the podium to discuss copier equipment and service agreement.
We always have the most exciting stuff. So, good evening, board. Before you is a recommendation for awarding an RFP for copier equipment and services. So we issued a request for proposals on December 23rd, 2025. After we received 7 proposals, we narrowed that down to 3 finalists. Those finalists provided presentations and interviews back to our committee. We selected 2 to go out and request a best and final offer for them to sharpen their pencil, come back, give us the best possible pricing around this. After we completed that evaluation, the committee selected Marco Technologies. Marco Technologies represented the lowest cost of the finalists, along with providing high-quality services. Upon approval of this agreement, Marco will engage with the district to help optimize our copier fleet. And so below the recommendation here are annual costs, and these annual costs are based upon estimated use. So we see about 48 million prints and copies on our copier fleet throughout the year. So that's what this is based upon. Additionally, we will also be providing for the first time to our schools a color copier. So in the past, we've only provided color printers. Color copiers will be more cost efficient while also providing a better outcome, much cleaner print. It'll end up being a much better service for our schools. And so the estimated costs come out to, over a 5-year period, $2,482,120 over that 5-year period. This is a 3-year agreement with 2 optional 1-year extensions. So we would be locked in for the next 3 years, and then we can extend 2 additional times with this agreement. This agreement does include a lease of the equipment and then also a service agreement. The service agreement is a per cost for every page that is printed, and that provides for the service of the equipment along with automated toner replenishment, which means that the toner just shows up at your door, you put it in to the copier, and it just keeps going. So for this recommendation, we do have a specific language that we will request tonight, and that's that the board award a contract for copier leases and maintenance to Marco Technologies, LLC, including with the modifications to the RFP as set forth in the Marco bid response, and to execute a lease agreement and maintenance agreement. Travis Shaw is hereby authorized to execute the lease agreement and license agreement and such other documents as may be required to carry out the effect and intent of this motion. Had to make sure I got that one right, because this does include that lease piece, so we have to have that.
And since you
correct
said all
language.
of that, before we have discussion or comments, is there a motion and a second? So I don't have to repeat it. Motion from Board Member Thomas Tate. Second. Second from Board Member Provance. Thank you.
Yeah, we have questions.
My question, you kind of answered it already. You said that this is a 3-year contract with 2 1-year extensions. So when does this go back out to bid, in 3 years or in 5 years?
That'll be our option. So assuming Marco does a fantastic job, which we're definitely assuming that, we would go back out to bid in 5 years.
I just, out of curiosity, morbid curiosity, you kind of piqued it a little bit with the 48 million copies annually. That has to be thousands of printers across the district. Do you have a number?
230 copiers throughout the district.
230, okay.
Yeah. So some of these see hundreds of thousands of copies and
Wild
prints
number.
throughout the year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just had a follow-up on Trita's kind of the estimated annual cost. Of course, it's higher those first 3 years, and then it drops those kind of 4th and 5th years. What's the reason for that?
That's because of the lease agreement.
Because of the lease, okay,
So
so-
the lease is heavy on the first 3 years since that's
Okay.
the guaranteed piece, and then
Gotcha.
it's reduced for years 4 and 5.
So that's the cost for the lease, and then we pay per print, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so that's something that's just a continuing. You said this is not very exciting. I know a lot of people who found the shift to this very exciting. It's not just copying, but it's, people will send it and it'll print. So for those that are listening, at home, I didn't know what this was because I'm old and I have this idea of what a copier is, but things have really changed. And if you wouldn't mind just explaining what this is, because, an average person will look at that and be like, wow, it's a lot of money for some copiers. But these aren't just copiers. And I didn't know that until I went to school visits and I learned about what this really is. Do you mind spending just a minute or two explaining this?
Certainly. Yeah, so our copiers throughout the district serve kind of three major functions. So one, we can print to them. So, right, we bring up our laptops, we're able to print documents. Teachers are using that to print out lesson plans, to provide assignments. We use them for a variety of materials for professional learning, other pieces in terms of our daily operations. We obviously use them for copiers as well, and that's just day-to-day operations there. But then they're also able to be used for scanners. And so you're able to scan a large stack of documents very quickly and get that into a PDF file. You're able to use that for a variety of different pieces. Some of these have very advanced features where they can actually do translations. They can actually do optical readings off of those printed materials, off of hand-rented materials with those scanners as well. So they're used in a variety of ways. They are heavily used, especially at our high schools. Just to be perfectly honest, not to call anyone out, our high schools use these all the time. They are key to how they operate day in and day out. Whenever they go down, it's felt. And that was one of the things that Marco really impressed us with. They actually incentivize their technicians to increase the time between calls. Not just fix the issue that they see today, but ensure that there's not an issue further down the line. So they do preventative maintenance all the time and help extend that, because we know how essential they are within the day-to-day operations of the school.
And it's one of the features that I didn't know about that I thought was, wow, if all of us are here and we, let's say, print something, it'll just start printing it and there's just a big mess, lots of paper, but that, I'll send something to the printer, I go up, I scan my ID, and it prints it for me. So it's just directed, it's efficient, it's precision. So I just thought that was pretty exciting, actually. I know you said it wasn't exciting, but this stuff didn't exist when I was in school.
Hey, I appreciate the excitement on this one.
All you needed to know about copiers and more. Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, we have a motion and second on the table. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. And then Dr. Shaw will join us again for a bond project update.
So I found out about 2 minutes before this meeting that I was presenting this, so bear with me. So we have change orders and agreements. So you'll see the list. A few of the things on here to note. We are adding an intercom system into the Ag Academy, and we are going to utilize safety security dollars to do that. We do have a playground, a small playground installation piece at the old Jarrett for the with the move from Bingham over there. We have some commissioning services around the Pershing project, and then you have several items lumped into one amount for a change order with DeWitt. Won't read through those individually, but this comes to a total of $223,639 for these change orders and agreements this evening. The only change order, again, is the one for Reed Middle School. All the others are new agreements for those particular projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned Bingham would be at the old Jarrett, and they're going to start the construction. Bingham's got some really cool playground equipment.
I was going to ask the same question. Good.
So are we going to be able to save it and
Yes.
reuse?
Yeah, that's all very new equipment, so they will be able to salvage that. If there is any that has to be moved, we can move it, we can put it back in. So that's all part of the site plan that'll be in place.
Thank you.
Other board member comments or questions? Thank you for filling in last minute, Dr. Shaw.
You're welcome.
I'll entertain a motion that the board approve the expenditures as presented. Okay, motion from board member Provance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from board member Huff. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Now on to a sidewalk easement.
Yeah, so the Bissett Elementary sidewalk easement is with the city, and it will provide a pedestrian connection from the neighborhood sidewalk on the southeast side of Bissett Elementary to the south entrance doors. This will allow direct walking access for the students from the nearby neighborhoods, and so it's basically, we're going to do this, but the city will need to have access in the event that they need to deal with any of the utilities that this will be in the same area with. So that's why we are requesting an easement at this particular time.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Do I have a motion that the board authorize and approve an 8-foot wide sidewalk easement to the city of Springfield at Bissett Elementary? And the president of the board is authorized and directed to execute the easement's permanent right-of-way deed and all other documents required to complete this transaction on behalf of the district.
So moved.
Okay, motion from Board Member Huff. Do I have a second? Okay, second from Board Member Smart. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Turn it back over to you.
Okay, and finally, the track and field renovations that will be at the Lafayette Park that's currently adjacent to Reed Middle School. As you know, that has been a facility that our kids have used. It's gotten very dilapidated, if you will, and so these renovations will not only assist with the physical education classes every day at that school, as well as football practice and track and field, and then we'll provide, obviously, a great facility for the community. And so one thing that Sean did not give me before he left was the actual narrative, so I'm going off of memory, but I believe this bid was $1,177,000. There were 4 bids for this. Oh, it's up on the screen. I can see it. So we will give a notice to proceed to Crossland per approval of the board tomorrow to begin that work. They'll start having meetings. We will engage with, obviously, the Parks Department as far as that goes. You will notice that this cost comes in a little bit higher than what we were originally anticipating. So some of the reason for that is we were able to actually change the original shape of the track to make it more oval, like a regular track, give a couple more lanes, so that did add some cost. The drawings initially had a lot of the field events on the drawings, but wasn't part of the original cost estimate. So adding things for shot put, discus, long jump, those things added some cost. We did fence all the way around the property to make sure that when our students were out there, it could be as safe as possible, still allowing public access. We've got several entrances. There was some ADA accessibility places where we needed to be able to have direct access to the track from wheelchair accessibility, so that part was added. We went ahead and did sod in the field rather than a hydro seed. And then also one of the things that we learned was there were existing light poles that had been put in through grants, and those needed to stay, and so we had to deal with that part of it, leaving that electrical, working around that. And then finally, some of the stormwater improvements that needed to be made was a little bit more extensive than what was originally thought, and so that's where the difference is. We do have plenty of dollars within the bond funds to pay for the extra dollars, so that's not a concern, but it is a little bit more than we originally anticipated the project would cost. So excited to get this going so that we can have this completed in August before the kids start school this fall.
Thank you. Board member questions or comments?
So when we go for the
Pardon me?
ribbon, so when we go for the ribbon cutting, you think that this will be ready to go? Sorry.
It should be, yes.
That's exciting.
Yes, it should be.
Okay. Well, Susan will take a lap around the.
It's a very flat site, as you know, so the excavation and the removal won't take a long time. It's bringing fill in, get it set to where it can be a much more usable space. The track and field, the track itself, that would be the longest part of the construction. But yeah, that's the plan, is to have it done by August.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? All right, I will entertain a motion that the board accept the bid submitted by Crossland Construction in the amount of $1.177 million for this project.
So moved.
Motion from Board Member Mohammed Khani. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Board Member Huff. Sorry, Sarah. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. Dr. Lathan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Before we begin tonight, board members, I would like to just recognize you and thank you for your leadership. I kind of get misty-eyed when I think about all these bond projects, and you made a commitment back in '23 to ensure that every project that we built, every building we built, but every school, especially our middle schools, would have the same thing as it relates to not only the facilities, but also track. I truly believe that, you know, beyond the school day, our students need to be connected to some type of athletics or extracurricular activity. So I just thank you for supporting the efforts and staying true to the commitment that we made to our community. With that being said, this Friday we'll host my Unity Tea for 100 high school young ladies from across the district. Really excited to be able to have an opportunity to put them in partnership with business leaders from our community. So excited about that. Our Teacher of the Year, we're celebrating on April 29th with outstanding teachers from across the district. Next week, I will go out and surprise 5 teachers and let them know that they are finalists for the event. On April 9th, we have a wonderful opportunity in collaboration with Springfield NEA and MSTA to host a legislative update on education. It will be held from 5:30 to 7 o'clock at Glendale High School. It is open to our staff and the community. We've invited elected officials that serve in our region to participate. Right now, we have a commitment from Representative Stephanie Hine, Representative Melanie Stinnett, and Representative Bessie Fogle. We are looking to hear from a couple of more elected officials that we've contacted. I would like to thank our union leadership for reaching out and saying, hey, we need to do this and spend some time talking about what's happening as it relates to education. So thank you all for your willingness to partner with us. Once again, April the 9th, 5:30 to 7 o'clock at Glendale High School. And finally, Election Day is April 7th, and several of our schools will be serving as polling sites. It is not a school day for our students. We do not have any items on the ballot. However, there is an important request to fund a new Springfield Convention and Event Center. Projects like this impact our entire community. Please remember to exercise your right to vote on April the 7th. Board members, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Lathan. That brings us to board comments. Do we have any comments from board members this evening?
I always have comments. I'll wait. I can.
You can start.
Oh, okay. And as I'm sitting here listening, I come up with more things that I got to get off my chest. Thank you for your comments, Dr. Lathan, but I do want to add that there's several board members that aren't with us tonight that were previously part of the board who are really instrumental in the bond, passing the bond and making sure that our middle schools have the facilities that they have. So shout out to them. In case I don't make it to the Rose Banquet for the Rose honorees on Thursday night, I wanted to congratulate each and every one of them. I would say it's one of our favorite events, just so sweet and special. So sorry if I don't make it. I'm going to try. A couple more comments. One is I want to just make sure our graduating seniors realize that April 1st is the deadline for FAFSA, and I know you can. So FAFSA, as everybody knows, is important for institutional scholarships and financial aid and state and federal. But what folks may not be aware of is Access Missouri. So this is a grant that is by the state, and the eligibility is needs-based. So it does require FAFSA, and it's not just for colleges, but it's also for training purposes, for job training. So I just want to make sure everybody realized that it's an incredible resource and that the deadline for that is April 1st. If you have any questions, I know we have employees in the district who are experts at this, and they will walk with you. I've done the FAFSA. It's quite a hill to climb, right? Okay. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about, so I'm wearing my Central High School's Kilties t-shirt. And back when I was a volunteer, I learned about it and, helped try to get this T-shirt done and all that. And then now I'm learning just how truly special they are. So if I could just share some of this with you, and I'll tell you why it came to my attention. I knew that they were celebrating their 100th year, their century, but I didn't realize that so there's marching band, and then so they're more than just a marching band, right? So they've got bugles and bagpipes and of the sorts. But what I didn't realize is that, here's a little history. Judy's not here, so I'm filling in, that Dr. Robertson in the mid-1920s, he had children, boys and girls, and he realized that men had access to a variety of activities, football, baseball, basketball, and that women in the 20s only had access to home ec. Did you know that? Yes, so he had immigrated to Springfield, little old Springfield, our little corner of the state, from Scotland in 1916, and he had this extensive musical history. He had founded the first official Boy Scout band of Springfield, but then he put his talents together and he started the Kilties Drum and Bugle Corps. And then it went on to we had a Kilties, they went by different names at each high school. Now we only have the Kilties, and then we have the Parkview Lassies. But, there's many, many more similar type in other states, other high schools. But this is the oldest all-female. And to know that it was in Springfield, and I didn't really know that. I mean, I knew about Kilties, but I didn't realize just how special and significant their history is. And it's really all our high schools. They all have their own unique personalities. And I didn't realize that that's why the Springfield Christmas Parade was called Wrapped in Plaid. It was to honor the Kilties and their 100th year anniversary. And I didn't know that. So they meet, it's unlike other sports, they meet 6:30 every morning, every day. And whole school year. So it's not seasonal. They're really dedicated, and that's why they go all over the world. They've been to inaugurations, they've been to the Millennium London Parade, and but also that the older girls teach the newer girls how to play the instruments, and then the older girls, the younger girls then become the older girls. So it's this tradition that's passed down and all of it. And I realize this, just how special they are, because they received a letter from the White House. So let me read it. It's really sweet. I offer my warmest congratulations to the Central High School Kiltie Drum and Bugle Corps as you celebrate your 100th anniversary. For a century, this is our Central High School, guys. The Kilties have carried forth the proud tradition of its Scottish heritage. It's really special, Scottish in Springfield. But then I'm from Iran, so, anything can happen. While building school spirit and strengthening ties within the community through decades of service and performance, indeed, countless young women have led with pride, showcasing their talent, teamwork, and discipline. This milestone stands as a lasting tribute to a legacy defined by excellence and achievement. As you celebrate this historic occasion, may you continue to inspire others and contribute to the greatness of America. I just wanted to read that to you and encourage you to give them a shout out. Maybe we can get the mayor it's just really very, very special, and we have that honor in our district. That's all.
Thank you for sharing. That was fascinating. Yeah. Other board member comments, questions? Yeah.
I remember my freshman year in speech, I spoke on the history of the drum corps.
Oh.
So I had the opportunity to be a Glendale Scotty, and it was very meaningful. It was before sports, so you can now be a cheerleader and in the drum corps, and now today it's just it's an honor to repeat history, to remember history. It's another great opportunity to be involved in the activities program. So every time that we can tie a student to an activities program, they're spending time with a sponsor, a coach, a meaningful adult in their life that goes above and beyond just the time in a seated classroom. I would like to start with my dear sweet bass students there. Yes, my cup of coffee was delicious, but Charlie's comments about how meaningful the teacher was and how that made his life, that opened up a door in his future. Just, I can't wait to go and eat and make sure that Charlie serves me, I asked him what was best, and he gave me the entire menu. So, okay, there we go. It's all wonderful. But congratulations to those students and many others. I wanted to mention another activities program, dear and sweet to the heart. We had 15 schools at the state archery tournament down in Branson. We have, yes, not everyone performed their very best. Not everyone made the podium, but every one of them, I was so proud of the way they represented the schools. You know, they were in their uniform, they were standing by their coach, they were attentive, they were quiet, they were disciplined, they were so respectful the way they were moving around. An archery tournament is so great because you can go up and congratulate someone from another school. They didn't beat you, they just had a better day. And so it's a really happy time. And I want to also recognize we have kept track in previous years of all the different schools that have had a state qualifier. It's a standard that the state says that, you know, you have to achieve to go to the state tournament. You just don't show up. You have to achieve. So we had our first student from Westport, and Aiden Spray did such an outstanding job, shot his best. It was, he's a 7th grader, but it was the equivalent of a high school score. So we were real pleased. We had several teams and individuals, and I was so happy for all of them. Like I said, I want to thank you for all the opportunities that kids can be in activities. Not everyone can be in sports. The bigger, taller, faster, stronger. I got that. I coached in that world. It was really great when Lisa Moore walked in and she was 6 foot tall, and I saw her running sprints in volleyball, and I knew I had a center that year in basketball. But I also had a really great team, and my center was 5'7". So everyone can participate in activities, and I appreciate that again. One last thing. Today marked the beginning of the 4th quarter. The 4th quarter is the fastest quarter ever. So if there are any kids staying up late and you're watching this, heads up, keep up. Thank you.
Thank you. Other board member comments?
I don't have anything big, but I was going to tell you, Miriam, I lived near Midtown years and years and years ago, and you could hear the Kilties practicing at about 7 in the morning, starting in August. It was kind of a fun way to wake up and hear the drums in the distance. But I did want to say, yes, start of 4th quarter. We're back from spring break. Kids are in competitions left and right, and it's really fun to see kind of the culmination of their work. I did want to just say thank you to some of our community partners. Every Monday and Tuesday, I pick up my nephew, and he rides with us to Central, and he was telling me he was getting to shadow. And so I was reading up about that program. We had over 300 students that got to shadow and visit businesses in the community, and the list of businesses is long and varied. Over 25 different businesses opened up their doors to our students. So I love to see our kids getting out and getting real-world experience and exposure to possible careers, and just opening their eyes to things that maybe they haven't thought of. So that was a fun thing I didn't really know that we did. So I want to say thank you to those community partners for opening up their doors. It's really cool. Yeah, and finish strong. Kids, teachers, summer's near.
Yes. Okay.
Was their spring break. So thank you very much, and thank you for your thank you today, and I'm looking forward to getting my coffee cup and going to coffee.
Yes. Thanks, Gail.
And how could I forget the Parkview Lassies? Joni Stand, They went on a great trip over spring break. I know this meant so much to them. They have worked hard to raise funds. They have worked hard to practice and perform. So to the Parkview Lassies, glad you had such a great time.
All right. Okay, our next meeting is April 14th, which is a study session and reorganizational meeting. And then we'll have a regular meeting on April 28th. This time, I'll entertain a motion that the board adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Motion from Board Member Huff. Do I have a second? Second from Board Member Smart. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We will see you on April 14th.